Thank you for watching Let's Get Political. I'm, of course, your host, Alicia Reese. Today we have State Representative Gallop Franklin with us answering 13 questions. Thank you for taking the time.
Thanks for having us. Yeah, great to be here.
Question 1. Who's your best friend at the Capitol?
Shane Abbott is also another pharmacist. He is a Republican, but I will say we connected because we're both pharmacists and we're the first two pharmacists elected in 24 years. And so we're talking, I think 2000 or 2002 was the last time there was a pharmacist in the process. So there's a lot of energy when we were running. Of course, he was running a lot before I was, but by the time we both got elected, a ton of energy in the pharmacy world. And so we connected very quickly and became really good friends. And our wives are also good friends as well.
Who is your best friend from across the aisle?
So that would be the same answer in that scenario. So I would say the person I'm the closest to in the process would be someone from across the aisle, interestingly enough. Yeah.
What do you do when you aren't in Tallahassee and when you are in Tallahassee but not at the Capitol?
Great question. So I am in this MBA MS healthcare leadership program. So I'm in New York quite a bit. I was there this past weekend. I'm there 2 or 3 times a month. And so I'm typically always working or doing school stuff. And so I go to New York. I'm at Cornell, so I go there quite a bit. When I'm in town, though, and not the Capitol, once again, I'm either teaching, or I teach at the College of Pharmacy at FAM, Florida A&M University. And then also I work at a hospital here in town doing some admin stuff. And so normally I'm working around the clock. Every now and then I get to sleep in some, so I do that. I used to be an avid golfer, but, since I've gotten elected and started doing all this stuff with school and everything else, haven't had the time. So the last trip I took, so I went to Puerto Rico for my wife's birthday. Before that, took a golf trip to Vegas with some buddies, and that was a good time. I applied October 21, got accepted in December, and then I was going to start July of 22. This opportunity to run for office came up in May of 22. So at first I wasn't going to do it, right? They're like, hey, you should run, you should think about it. It's like, I got a lot going on at the time. I was going to start a new program. It's a 2-year program, 2 degrees. And also I was overseeing the pharmacy department at an outpatient oncology center. It was like, dude, I got too much going on. I'm teaching, I'm juggling. I'm about to start this new program where I got to go to New York all the time. And somehow we got talked into doing it. Really spoke to my heart of just helping folks. And so we did. And somehow it's worked. We had a good first session. And so we're still working at it.
What's your favorite bill that you put forth last year?
Oh, good question. My favorite bill that I put forth last year. So there was a PEP and PrEP bill that we also filed this year as well. It really helps with decreasing the incidence rates of people that acquire HIV. So oftentimes, as you know, there's different cocktails you can use to prevent you from acquiring the disease. And so coming from a healthcare perspective, we're always looking at ways to make sure prevention is much better than treatment. Because as you know, when you do have a debilitating disease like HIV, you're not going to be as productive. It has an economic impact on society. And then plus, of course, it's tough for the individual going through it and their families. So that was when I would say I really enjoyed the idea of it. It didn't make it to the finish line. This year, we're working pretty hard to push it through. But one bill that did get passed actually helped with veterans last year, permanently disabled veterans. It wasn't my favorite, but still one of the favorites that I had.
What's a bill that someone else put forth that you didn't realize you were passionate about until you read it?
There was a lot of good bills last year that we were able to get through. One, Rep. Bartleman had a really good bill that helped with CHIP, right? The Children's Health Insurance Plans, which really create a glide path. And so instead of, as you know, getting to a certain how much money you make for the year and getting cut off of the insurance for your children, and you go from $15 a month to $250 a month, we have a glide path where you make a little bit more, then you pay a little bit more, right? And in my mind, when you think about welfare, the idea is not to have 4 families, as in 4 generations of a family to be on welfare. And how do we make sure the incentives are in the right place that help people to be able to attain work and to become better and productive citizens in society? And so her plan, prevents people from saying, hey, I can't take the $1 per hour raise because if I do that, I'm going to actually have to pay another $1,000 a month in services because I no longer qualify, right? And so I think those are the type of bills last year I really enjoyed and didn't know about it until I read it, and it was fantastic. So definitely helped. I co-sponsored it, helped get it across the finish line, and most of everybody did. It was unanimous on the floor.
Do you live in your district?
Oh, great question. So by state law, we have to live in our district. Now, if you're in Congress at the federal level, you just have to live in the state, but not the district. But the rule here is you have to be in your district by, I think it's midnight after election day. So if you get elected November 8th, by like 11:59 p.m., you have to be in your district. But I've lived in my district, I would say, pretty much my entire life. And so yeah, that's kind of how it works.
You're running for re-election.
Absolutely. Yep.
Sum up your campaign in one word.
That's a tough one. One word. Progress.
If you win re-election, how do you realistically see Florida in the next 2 years?
You know, when you look at what Florida has morphed into the last 2 or 3 years, it looks much different than what I can remember growing up as a kid. And I remember watching Senate presidents do interviews, speakers of the House back in the day. When I would listen to their policies and the things they would say, there was a tenor that you realized it seemed like everything they did was about what was most important for the Floridians. But now it seems like sometimes presidential politics, and I would say even, and this is on both sides of the aisle. On the Democratic side, we have folks who you would consider them more further to the left, right, than the rest of the folks. And oftentimes those voices are the loudest within the party. And on the Republican side, you have people far to the right. And oftentimes those voices are the loudest within the party. And so now we're in a political climate where the voices that are being uplifted and most organized are actually the most extreme on each side. And so what I'm seeing is, I feel like now more than ever, middle America is disenfranchised and doesn't have the same voice they had before. And so, you know, you say in 2 years, I'm not sure what that looks like, but I do see a future where we start to get back to collaborating, more common sense approaches to passing laws and helping everyday people, where we're not being divided because of rhetoric and social issues that, as you know, has been the forefront. You know, when people get up every day to go to work, they're thinking about how to provide a better future for their family. You know, how am I going to get my child into college or into a trade school? What type of tutor do I need to make sure that my kid has a shot at being successful one day? And that has nothing to do with the culture wars and all the things you see at the forefront of issues today. And so I do know in the next 2 years, hopefully we start seeing that shift and change, but we'll see.
What's something about the Capitol that a lot of people don't know? A secret spot or a little known fact?
You know, that's a good question. Because I'm from here, you know, I kind of knew a whole lot about it. But a lot of people might not know there's that viewing deck on the top floor, which is really beautiful. You can see the entire city from the top floor. As a kid, I would actually come to the Capitol, and a lot of the decisions I would make, I would go up there and kind of pray and walk around and look over the city. And so I will say that's a neat part. And also the old Capitol now is a museum. So you can go in there and look at all type of neat videos and photography from like the history of Florida. So people might not realize, you know, there's a lot of museums and historical perspective that they can get access to here too.
What's a misconception people have about your job?
So interestingly enough, even though I'm in the State House, a lot of people think we are representatives in DC. And so what's neat is, you know, when they were having the whole squabble about the speaker, I would have people coming up to me talking about the squabble. Like, man, how's it going up there? You know, like I see what's going on. And so most folks don't understand or know, I guess you could say, that there's a state legislature. And then there's also, of course, the DC, you know, federal legislature. And so it's kind of interesting because my name is Representative Franklin, or Rep Franklin. They still think that Rep Franklin is actually a rep up in DC. And so I would say that's probably one of the most common misnomers for those who aren't students, I would say, right, of the process, who don't eat, sleep, and breathe it every day.
If you weren't a state representative, what would you do?
Really good question. So while we're not, so I'm really interested in life sciences. And so my long-term goal in life was always to go and try to partner with scientists coming out of academic centers or small startups and help them bring, you know, that molecule to commercialization and help cure, you know, diseases. And so that takes investment. So you got to go and raise money around that. You got to go and make sure you understand the science and know what to invest in, and then really be helpful to partner those folks with the right people to try to help bring that to the marketplace. where everyday folks that might have issues with whatever disease states it might be can get help that way. So that's really something I'd be actively pursuing.
What's a fun fact about your job that people don't know?
Okay, so fun fact that people don't know, it's pretty neat to be inside of the chamber. And so like kind of like where we do business, what that looks like, it's definitely a privilege to be able to, just help folks. And so even though I'm just one of 120 in the state house, there's times where I'm able to help, impact so many lives, whether it's impact with policy perspective or budgetary policy. And so I would say what I enjoy about it, what's neat that people probably don't get to experience, is just actually seeing it unravel and actually happening in real time, right? And what that looks like. And there's a lot of relationship building and politics that goes along with that.
What does your perfect day include?
Perfect day? That's tough. I like to try to rest. So if I can get rest, is pretty perfect for me. Outside of that, I enjoy spending time with friends and family. So resting, spending time with friends and family, some extracurricular stuff, or get some sun and just kind of work out a little bit. Those are great days that I can really recharge and be ready for the next challenge.
That's all the questions. Thank you for taking the time.
Of course. Yeah.